And welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Plek, and joining me in studio is none other than Senor Jordan Smith.
Hey, excited to be here, Chris.
And also Laurie Ann Peacock. Welcome, Laurie Ann.
Hello, hello.
Okay, well, I'm so excited for your story today, Laurie Ann. I've got Jordan in here for some extra interview help because your story is so intense that I don't think it's just ready for mainstream ears. So let's walk through this. Tell me about, we're going to talk about how Jesus really saved you, redeemed you, brought you from death to life. But I want to kind of start in your childhood. Tell me the story.
Trying to remember how I started it in the email.
Well, there are three of you total. Your brother, you, and your little sister.
There is. So, honestly, we had an amazing childhood. We really did. My mind is going everywhere right now.
You were daddy's girl?
So, we traveled a lot. And
Okay.
they've been married. My parents have been married almost 50 years.
Yeah.
And so, very loving household
Yeah.
and a very Catholic household. But our world pretty much was revolved around family and traveling.
Yeah.
From, desert life with the trailer and the dog and the truck and ATVs. Beach. You name it. We did it all when we were kids. And yeah, I'm Daddy's little girl through and through. So I kind of wish I had my little email right here with me to flash back to it. But my mind's like totally taking a blank right now.
It happens.
Sorry.
Your trouble began whenever your mom, like you had the storybook life until your mom just got fed up at one point.
So Dad was the president of a biker club when we were growing up. And that was completely normal for all of us, from, having house parties and all his buddies meeting over at the garage, and my mom's friends were the wives of all the biker buddies, and, we grew up with all their kids and all that. Halloween parties at the garage. We were called the Party Peacocks, to be honest with you, in our whole neighborhood and everything. And so, but after a while, Mom started getting really fed up with the, Dad coming home on his bike at 2 or 3 in the morning and, all that jazz. And when you have jobs and kids to raise, after a while, it kind of gets old. And after multiple events and Dad saying yes and not doing it, she finally had her last straw and said, we need to separate, gotta figure your stuff out, etc. So, and so at that point, Mom was working 2 jobs and going to school and raising 3 kids, while Dad was about 30 to 45 minutes away in his apartment doing his thing. He was working, whatever have you. So, and I think for me, because, everybody remembers their childhood differently, even though you were raised all in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
Because my sister actually mentioned that too. She was like, why do we remember everything so differently? I go, because I was 4 years older than you. And everybody has different personalities, whatever. So that's when a lot of things started changing for me, because Dad wasn't always around. And then, you have family friends coming in, help raise the kids while Mom's going to work overnight and all that. House cleaning ladies, her best friends teaching her how to cook, teaching the kids, there's a whole village.
Right.
So, and then they were separated for about 3 years. And then 6 months before Dad moved back in, I want to say, the timeline could be completely off, but then Dad had one of his friends move in to his garage because he didn't know where else to park his van, and that's where everything went.
How so?
Crazy. Well, he was a friend to everybody, and Dad trusted him, I trusted him, Mom trusted him, whatever. And just one random day, I go into the garage, and he wanted to show me something in his van, and one thing leads to another, and insert taking advantage of a young girl that's not even in her teens yet. I may have been like 10 or 11, I don't know. So, when you come from a large family like I do, like a large family, like my mom's the first of 6, dad's the third of 4. So when you're like the first granddaughter out of a total of 18 grandkids on my mom's side, so a very large family, and I was kind of shy when I was a kid. So then the separation happens and everything else. After a while, you feel like you're kind of floating, just kind of there. But then I honestly can't remember how many times it happened, but I just know that fast forward from things that happened in that dude's van to my dad randomly waking me up one day, middle of the night, in the room, and I was at mom's house, and he wakes me up and really quiet, and he was like, "You're not going to get in trouble. I just wanted to know," and he asked the question, and did anything happen between, this person and whatever have you, and I was like, didn't think anything of it, and I was like, yeah, and he just, a little bit, slightly more detail, and then he's like, okay, it's all I needed to know. You're not in trouble. I just want to know the truth. And then I can just see the intensity of fire and fury in him, but love at the same time. And so after that was done, I was like, okay, whatever. He was okay, go back to bed. And after that, Mom took me aside about, I don't even know how long after, but I heard that that it happened to a couple other of their friends' kids as well, so it wasn't just me. So nobody else in the family. I think my sister was already there by then, so she didn't happen to her. Nobody else but me. So came down to it. We had the courts, and I had to go up on there and do my testimony in front of the dude. And the guy had a daughter, and she did not know about any of this. And so when we were giving my testimony, and my mom and dad were just sitting there just dumbfounded all the details, and of course. And then at the end of the whole thing, the daughter walked up to all of us, and she says, "My father is dead to me. I can't believe he would ever do this to anybody." And so how many years later, we started getting random phone calls. And I was oblivious, protection of the kid. So later, like many, many years later, I found out that my sister told me, she was like, "You do know that we changed our telephone number because he kept calling the house. He got out of jail and he kept calling the house." And wanted to make things right and come over. And I guess one of the things that my dad told me was like, "You ever come here ever again, you're gonna have a bullet in your head, dude." Yeah. My dad's he's a veteran. Yeah. He served in Germany for 2 years. Yeah. We're raised in a Southern household, even though it's Southern California. He's from Arkansas, so the man doesn't mess around. Yeah. So, and our kitchen had a rifle cabinet. So I just remember having that phone call and hearing my dad say something going on. I was like, "What is going on?" And they never told me. But I remember going down the hall and seeing my brother to come in the room, and he showed him how to load it. Never showed him how to shoot it, just showed him how to load it if it needed to use it. And then he just sat on the tailgate of the truck and just sat there and just waited all day. Just like, "Please come. Please show up to our house." And that's the last we ever heard, I guess, because changed the number and never knew why until my sister told me about 5 years after me moving here.
So that experience really triggered something for you. Did it take you down a dark path with this guy? I mean, how did that?
Well, I know that. So when it comes to all the, this is my first time really totally speaking about it.
Because I think there's something in this that, like, with parents raising children, when I tell people, like, people get molested to get raped probably more than we want to talk about. It happens a lot. not because of people you don't know. It happens from the people you do know.
Right. People you're comfortable with.
Right. And so talk to me about like trust issues. Talk to me about like all of that. How that impact you, even with your relationship with your own family.
Which is really weird to say. But coming from a big family, I always felt like anytime I wanted to say something, I was never heard because everything is so loud. And then when I finally was able to get it out of my system and like I'm gonna be heard, so I'm gonna say it louder and louder and louder and louder. I went to the point where you're yelling,
right?
And then like, God, why are you yelling? I'm like, because no one's listening to me.
Yeah.
To where that's why I'm so loud today naturally, is because it stems from never being heard when you're a kid.
Oh, it's wild. It's wild to see how much your childhood affects who you are as an adult.
And now you kind of just, I mean, I don't blame anybody, but except for the evil that was in the dude.
Yeah.
You know, mom and dad. There's no blame on anybody.
Right.
So.
Because it didn't just happen once. The guy groomed you, made it out.
He did it once, and then I was happened again by somebody else in the family a good couple of years later.
Oh, wow.
That went at a family function, and I came out and I said this, hey, this is what happened. And I was like, oh, whatever. Like, they just brushed it up like no one believed me. They thought I was just trying to ask for attention, and no one believed me. Because it was the uncle that married my mom's sister.
Huh.
With the guy that married the aunt. So, I mean, not as intense, but still enough to where I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And then ever since then, I'm like, well, I guess whatever, and just get moving on, because no one wants to believe that it could happen in the family. Just maybe a friend, but not a family member, kind of thing. And again, I don't blame anybody for not hearing me that day, but at the same time, it's like, you go from not being heard to now that's all you do is talk loud to be heard. And then all of a sudden your passion turns to, why are you yelling? It's like, I'm not.
It's just me being me.
I'm just me being me, because this is
who I've become.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, your passion turns to really loud and people think you're yelling at them. I was like, I don't know what to tell you on that. I'm not going to water down who I am as a whole. This is just who I am. I'm not going to quiet myself because someone can handle the passion behind who I have become.
Okay. And so what, so talk to me, your life took a turn toward partying and all that kind of thing. What happened?
So.
Well, hold on. I have some questions before then.
Yeah.
Well, first off, thank you for sharing. I'm sure that's not easy. I cannot understand like how that must feel. But my question is, when you said he was your dad's friend, but you used air quotes, what does that mean? Like he was just an acquaintance or what?
Well, I say that as obviously he's not a friend.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, and then when you said you weren't heard, is there some reason you can think of why your parents didn't?
I think it's because, mom's in the go. Her mind isn't on what's going on in the kids' life, like in the personal lives. Her mind is on, I have 2 jobs and I have 2 jobs and full-time schooling, because she was going to school to be a nurse.
Right.
And we were all kids when she graduated.
Right.
So for her job as a mom, and pretty much a full-time mom, is get this done, make sure the kids are fed, and it's not anything behind that is not even a thing. And I can only imagine how it would be to raise 3 kids.
Right.
And do all of that, being home or not being home overnight because you're studying to be a nurse.
Right.
And all that jazz. And like, she's the strongest woman I flipping know. So it's like, it's almost like the wall, that barrier is like the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have no idea, how my siblings dealt with it. I just know what I saw from my end.
Okay.
Yeah, I can kind of relate just from like the emotional neglect piece, because my parents were more the same as like provide materially and everything, but there was zero emotional connection in my family. So I know how that part goes.
Dad has always been the emotional connection. That's why
Okay.
I'm Daddy's little girl always.
Okay, that's good.
He's the one that I was sitting on his lap. But there's pictures of us growing up and sitting on his lap and watching like the Three Stooges or old westerns or
Right.
you name it. We had those connections that we grew up watching with him. And or, hey, I'm proud of you. Like he always said the things that every kid needs to have in their life.
Right.
Well, Mom was the cop, good cop, bad cop kind of thing, and she always hated that. But it's one of those, hey, I'm going to be the disciplinary while Dad will be the comforter.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally how it always was. And, Mom didn't do the good job. She went, that's great. Like even today, that's how she is. She doesn't say, congratulations or good job on how far you've come. She's just like, oh, I like your car and great closet.
Right.
Like she doesn't know how to come out and say those kind of things.
Right.
And I think that's just the way she was raised, maybe. I don't know. But that's all she knows how to do while taking care of the family. And then Dad, had disability growing up. So like something happened to him at work and he was out of work for 6 months. So it's, okay, now I gotta, you go from this to that. And she's just trying to figure out how to take everything on. And Dad's like, well, I'm your mom's the household leader, so it is what it is. And whatever she says goes. So ask her. Hey, kid, come here, give me a hug. Let's cuddle together. Let's go play whatever sports and outside in the pool, or we'll build you a fort and all that jazz. I mean, he did all the great things.
He just was passive.
It was just, Mom laid down the law. She did this, or her rules are this. That's when
It's
he
super
came
hard.
back.
I think you've seen the culture for a man to kind of lead and for a wife to follow. It's a super powerful dynamic, and it does affect children in a huge way. All right, so then when did you sort of like, the rules are too much, rebellion set in? When did that happen?
Probably after high school. Yeah, definitely after high school, because it was, when you're growing up on pharmaceuticals because you're ADHD and dyslexia, and I finally, my junior year of high school, I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore, because my parents didn't know what was wrong with me. Something's not right. She's not normal. And so I'm not focusing. All the things that they say that are bad on the report card, you end up being the most successful one out of your whole family because you were the special needs. You know what I mean? And I was the epitome of that. And so, and honestly, I think it's the pharmaceuticals that took me down the really, really dark outside of the thing that happened.
Right.
Because, hey, as long as the report card is showing that I'm focusing and I'm doing this and I'm bringing in the grades, but yet my mental state is so far gone. Right. And the depression hits in, and then not feeling welcome or not feeling heard, or this is nothing at school. Oh, I don't have time for dealing with this. Just figure it out. Put up, like what my mom say. I was bullied. You have the bullying, and then all this other stuff going on, and you talk too fast, speech impediment, blah 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 blah. So it's all these different things coming at you. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're not this, you're not this. And it's not seen from the parent side until you come home crying, going, I'm bullying, I'm getting tired of this. She's like, Laurie Ann, I don't have time to teach you how to stand up for yourself. I don't have time for this. Figure it out. Get in there and stand up for yourself. Because if not, they're going to take you down. Learn how to stand up for yourself. It was a very tough love household, which, don't get me wrong, worked really, really great. As I get older, I recognize what was said that I really took to heart. Right. At the same time, other things that should have never been said.
Right. You don't walk around with the victim mentality.
No.
But you do have an emotional vacuous hole that you're still trying to fill.
Apparently.
Yeah.
The things you don't realize until you realize.
Yeah, no, but that's good. Okay, so then when did the partying start? So you go for the party, and then you're just looking to have fun, get a couple drinks. What happens?
It was, after high school, I felt a relief, like I was free to find who I was. And I guess I mean, these people are actually, honestly, are still, I consider family to this day, because we all went through our discoveries together.
Right.
But so there was a household, one of my dearest friends and her mom has always wanted a bunch of kids in her house, and she
Right.
only had 2.
Right.
So a lot of us ended up finding who we were and discovering about ourselves in that house, like with parties and stuff. Like, so we would go to her house and just have a great time. All the keys are in the bowl. She would lock them up. Drink whatever you want to drink. I really don't care. Just don't do anything stupid. I have the keys, so no one can leave the house. But I mean, that wasn't the first initial thing, but it started introducing me to, alcohol. I smoked pot like 4 times in my life. So to me that was the drug.
Yeah.
But I mean, outside of that, it was, I'm gonna figure out who I am through this here, and where can I be accepted? And then outside of that, then it was, okay, so now I'm going to find, there's this random door-to-door job that I found that, you're going to sell this, you're going to sell that, you're going to sell this, and then your lunch breaks ended up being at strip bars and good steaks and all that jazz. So that's when I started seeing all of that sort of stuff.
So it's strip clubs.
Strip clubs, drag shows, all of that. Right? And you get your license I got my license at probably 19.
Okay. To
And
serve
then
alcohol.
after that, just it took off from there. Just
All right.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And so what did you figure out?
I had freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything was so strict, because I was the one, like I said, you can't get a job and you can't have a car until you graduate because your grades come first because of my ADHD and dyslexia. Because they know my attention span has to focus on this before you can go to this.
Right.
And of course, I was the only one that had that rule living in the house. So,
But you're saying you felt accepted in this party lifestyle. Is that accurate?
like, I was able to breathe and have freedom once I got my license.
Okay.
And then once I got my license, I had the good old station wagon Celebrity that looked like a boat. You had the back seats that faced toward the rear end, and everyone was like, "You're the best car ever." So I was the person that drove everybody to all the parties and never got in trouble if I had a drink or two or whatever have you, you
Right.
know? And so the license is what gave me the freedom to if I had an argument with Mom, I would give me my keys and peace out. Before I didn't have that.
Yeah.
Before it was, I'm going to write a letter and tell her how much she's pissing me off or whatever it
Okay,
may be,
yeah.
right? And that was my next, freedom.
Yeah.
But after that, it was, I guess, like I wanted to feel cool, so I had a bunch of friends over. My mom went to work one night, and we held a party, and a bunch of people came over, and she didn't trust us, and halfway through the night, she ended up coming home. And there was the pot and the alcohol and everything else and all that jazz, and we're like, wow, that was a fun night, but now that we know that she doesn't, it's almost like, I don't know,
Well, she was right, though, right?
well, she's 100% right. She couldn't trust us at all. Like, at the same time, I'm over here going, if you don't loosen the leash a little bit, guess what's going to happen? We're going to find ways to explore life.
Yeah.
And granted, while I was doing all of this, I was in a tight-knit, group with all the teen group at church.
Mm-hmm. That's a Catholic church.
Yeah. And, became, I would consider it a family at the teen group, and we had all the Bible studies, and we did everything else too. And then while I was showing this while being this.
Right. I think that's a struggle for a lot of teenagers. So at some point you kind of go through that life of like you're growing up, you're in your 20s. When did you get engaged?
I left. Let's see. How old was I? I want to say it was 22, 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I moved when I moved to Texas when I was 25.
Yeah.
So my first engagement was 22, 23.
Yeah.
That's
How'd
about
you
right.
meet this person?
Strip club.
No, actually, I'm trying to remember how I even met the dude. I just remember because, like I said, there's when you do a lot of, when you do all the scenes, your memory starts to be spotty because there's a lot of things you don't want to remember.
So this was still all the party lifestyle phase and everything?
I think I started to kind of break away from that a little bit. I can't even remember how I met him, to be honest. I just know that.
I was just curious, like, is he a
now I
bad
know.
influence or
It was
Christian?
I met him at a house party. That's what it was.
Okay.
I met a random house party, and that's actually how I started getting more involved in NASCAR, in my redneck section of my life.
Okay. Absolutely. NASCAR.
And, being all there with, we had that connection.
How long did you guys date before you got engaged?
Maybe a year.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
And then that's when I started realizing he was very, very verbally abusive.
Huh.
And then after that, I was like, I'm out.
A lot of women have the relationship they have with their mom with their husband. Isn't that weird? It's not
That's
with your
the
dad.
first time I ever heard that, because
Yep.
I heard that you usually the girl goes for the image of their father.
They do, but the relationship is the one they get. So they like the image of their dad,
Yeah.
but they generally treat them and are treated like they are with their mom.
Mind blown.
So you like
Okay.
the image of your dad, but the relationship dynamics are usually the same as the mom for a woman. There you go. Was that true?
Well, now I'm trying to figure out, because my dad is complete opposite of my grandmother. Like, he's complete opposite of everybody in our family. That's why they've had a marriage for 50 years, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
I always say he has the patience of Job.
Right.
Because that's just, yeah.
So the guy you almost got married to, did he have patience of Job?
Oh, no. I mean, he was very verbally abusive. And he's the one that introduced me to Calvary Chapel in California, and where I actually, there was a church, the Easter service, and it was at a huge park. It was outside at a park, and they were talking about the salvation. And just something just broke me.
You. Yeah.
And I was the first one to stand up. He was like, if you need to give yourself to Christ. I was like, don't have to ask me twice.
Yeah. Nice.
And from all discovery of, all the Catholic Church, this is the first time I actually was introduced to the non-denominational. I'm like, what difference is this? This is so weird.
Yeah, it's wild.
And he introduced me to the church, and then the Easter Sunday, and then I threw myself at the altar pretty much. And that's the Sunday I went back home, because all the family was coming together for Easter lunch and dinner at my mom's house. And when I say all the family, I mean everyone. And very, very, very large party. And I came home and I made the announcement, guess what? I just gave myself to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was like, it's almost like music, and then
Yeah.
everyone just stops what they're doing and looks at you like, what are you talking about? Because no one knows what they have no idea what that even means,
Yeah.
unless you think outside your Catholic box, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know a dang thing about any of it until he introduced me to it.
Yeah.
And that's
Is that
honestly
not a Catholic thing, accepting Christ? Or?
No.
You
Oh,
get
wow.
confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole traditional thing that is nowhere in the Bible.
You're baptized as a baby, and then you're confirmed at 13, and then you keep moving on.
Yeah,
So
that's
so after you get saved, how much longer did you stay engaged?
not
or-
even maybe 3 months.
And I remember you said like you broke off the engagement due to boredom. What do you mean by that?
Well, that was a second engagement.
Oh, sorry. The first engagement was abuse. Second engagement.
Yeah, the first engagement was abuse.
Yeah, second engagement.
And then the second engagement, he was a great dude. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with
Probably
the guy.
a Patience of Job type guy. Probably just like your dad.
I was still wanting to have fun.
Okay.
And I was not ready to just do the same thing different day. I wasn't that kind of person. Today's a different story. In my 40s, go figure. But I wasn't ready to just stop going out and having a good time. I wanted to be with a person, and I loved the idea of marriage, and there was nothing wrong with them. It's just after a while, I just got really bored. Like, we do this weekend. Oh, let's do this and this and that. I'm like, we did that like the last 3 weekends in a row. Can we do something different?
Huh.
Or,
Do you regret that?
No,
Really?
I don't.
You don't look back at that and been like, man.
My mom does. If you just stuck with so-and-so, you'd be married by now. And I was like, well, then you should have married him. Leave him alone. In other words, she's very controlling.
Yeah.
In the very Irish way.
Yeah.
And
Is she a redhead?
what gave you that idea? And so it was if you don't do this, I know what's best for you. How dare you go against what I tell you is best for you? Because I'm your mother. I know what's best for you. It was a very almost sinister, it was a happier way of the movie Tangled.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I hear that song, I'm like, oh my God, that's my mother. And so that's what I say. I love her to death. I will never ever say anything bad about her. It's just some of those things, those character traits that you try to break away from and not be.
Right.
And so that's what it was. And so to this day, she's like, man, if only you just held tight. I'm like, you weren't in that relationship. You have no idea what went behind closed doors. You don't know what the conversations were. Just stop being God. Or trying to be God. There's a reason why it didn't work out.
Right.
And that's why I cracked up to be.
Okay, so then when do you move to Texas?
A year later. So a year after I broke up with the first fiance. 6 months later, I met the second one. And a year and a half later, I booked it off, and then I was out the door.
Like, I'm going to Texas.
Yes. And after I moved here, he actually, 6 months later, wanted to follow me here. He goes, I'll come out there for you. I go, no. In my mental state, I was like, I moved here because I couldn't breathe in the house anymore. It was just, everyone was hectic. My sister had her my first nephew at 17, and everyone was living at mom and dad's house. And I was like, I'm in my 20s. I can't do this anymore. So I couldn't breathe anymore. I said, I have to get out of here.
So you went for let's move to Texas where I know nobody, as opposed to you could have just gotten an apartment. Why didn't you do that?
Well, so this is I attempted to move out twice in the same state before moving out of the state. And I moved in with some girlfriends beforehand and their parents actually, just to sit there and try to get some breathing room.
Sure.
And then I knew that I couldn't. I just moved back. It ended up being too easy. I thought, well, the next time I move out, it can't be in the state because I can't make it so easy on myself anymore. This is getting ridiculous.
Right.
Like, you got to start putting your feet grounded somewhere and grow your roots somewhere because this is not. I'm gonna die here. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna ever find myself if I stay here.
Okay. So then you go to Texas.
So I'm in Texas.
Probably move to 6th Street.
And then, so actually, I did know someone here. At the time, it was my best friend that I actually met at my very first job. And her, at the time, husband, Burger King.
Oh,
Never eat at Burger King, guys. Don't
It's not flame broiled.
do it. Nothing is what you think it is. So, but I met, in my first job, I met her and her husband, and I actually still talk to him and his new wife and all that. But when I told them that I was trying to figure something out, so actually this is what happened. I sat down at the kitchen table, and my dad was doing the dishes, and I don't know where mom was at. But I wrote a letter to God, and I just poured everything out in a letter to him. And that's my way of like, okay, now lift the words up to heaven and just hear me and give me an answer. Where am I supposed to go? Because I'm dying here. I can't do this anymore. And I go to the bathroom, I come back, and I noticed the letter had been moved. And I looked at my dad, and he didn't do anything. And so I sat there and reread the letter again. He's like, "Hey, sweetheart. Hi. You doing all right?" "Yeah, I'm good. Is there anything you want to talk about?" "Not yet." "Okay. I'm here if you need. When you're ready. Thank you." And that was it. Because he's a very, very, very easy guy to talk to. Not judgmental, very loving, just sits there and just hears you out, tells you his concerns, and lets it be. He lets you be you.
Yeah.
So
Why were you hesitant to talk with him at that point?
I wasn't ready. And he knew that. But then a week later, I was 100% ready and said, "Mom, Dad, we need to have a conversation." And that's when I divulged everything in my letter and said what I needed to say. I said, "So I have two options. I can either move to San Diego with a boyfriend," which I know is not the option at the time, but it was still an option for me, "or move to Texas with Mary Ann and Daniel."
Yeah.
And I said, "You can either have a 3-hour drive or you can have a 3-hour flight. But those are my only options. I don't know what else to do." And so there was a long talk, and we're like, "Well, you know how we feel about living with people before you're married to them." Even though I've already had my experiences with sex and all that before all that.
Right.
So they said, "Well, we would hate for you to be so far away, but we understand why, and we would feel more comfortable you being with people we know and we trust and we respect, and that would help you and be good for you."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay." And a week later, I had my entire car packed up and I peaced out.
Nice. And then you get to Texas, and then this is where things start turning a little weird. Like, this is where you start experimenting with both sexes and kind of like the
Everything.
bisexual stuff.
Everything. So, I do know. So, I was chilling at the house for like 6 months, just trying to get my bearings and find a good job and all that jazz. And then I was like, "Okay, I got to get out. I want to go dancing," because before I left California, I was out dancing 4 nights a week.
Right.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We were having a blast. And of course, the dance hall, that's probably also where I experienced a lot of that, plus, other scenarios of other friends from old high school and all that jazz, and so.
Was this Austin or somewhere else in Texas?
Oh, Austin.
Okay.
So I ended up moving to Amherst in Mopac, my very first home.
Yeah, yeah.
And I moved in with them. And this is where I think so actually I'm probably incorrect on this. My first experiences with threesomes, if you will, was actually in California.
Mm-hmm.
And then it carried over to the people I ended up living with
Mm-hmm.
in Texas, because they asked me how I would feel, because they felt like their marriage was on the rocks and they needed some help in this different area. And they asked how I would feel about X, Y, and Z, because they knew I've already been through or had already experienced those things. And they said, "I don't know." This like the whole, like, the couple and me having this conversation. Like, you're the only person that we could think of that we trust and respect in this way, that if you said no, we would not. We feel comfortable coming to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
And she's willing to give it a shot, and I'm willing to give it a shot and see if it can help us with our marriage. And I was like, "What?" So all that jazz. There's obviously deeper.
Let me get this straight. They're like, "Hey, our marriage is not doing well. Would you like to do a threesome?"
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, "Well, I have certain rules, and here they are. And if any of these rules crossed,
what are the rules?
if anybody ever starts feeling uncomfortable, if I can read your face and you're not comfortable with anything that's happening, I'm walking out.
Yeah.
I will not be a reason why a marriage does not work out. And I also don't want to be part of. I don't want to be part of anything that does not work out."
Right.
And I said, "And I respect you guys too much to make anybody feel jealous or envious in any way. And so this is what's going on." And then it happened a couple times. And then I started sensing it. I was like, okay. So I pulled her aside and started asking her, and she divulged some things to me. And then I asked him. He's like, "Oh, I'm fine." I was like, "Okay, well, she's not feeling fine, so I'm going to have to cut this off. I'm not okay with this."
Mm-hmm.
But then I noticed that he wanted to start he initiated with me when she wasn't there at sometimes. I was like, dude, I can't do this. This is not okay. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to find my own place.
Wow. All right. So in this time when you're like, like any church experience, like you have this moment at like the thing, and then we're into threesomes. Like how do you get from Jesus, save me to, that seems like a good way to help your marriage out. How do you get there?
Forgetfulness. Just physical pleasure over spiritual pleasure.
Uh-huh.
And wanting to be wanted.
Yeah.
Because that's the first time I actually felt that was in the van. Wanted, heard, seen. And then here I am getting the same thing from adults that are my friends.
Right.
And yeah, so you just start.
There wasn't like God doesn't want me, these people do. It was just like, I don't think about God, and these people want me.
Right.
Okay. So did drinking become a huge part of this like coping mechanism of when you sort of move out, or like when does the DUI hit?
I don't remember how many years after I moved here it hit. Because I know that this month is literally my 20th anniversary of being here.
Wow.
So, yeah, October of 2004 is when I actually moved here.
Yeah.
So, given the fact that I'm actually having this now on my 20th anniversary is kind of rocking me a little bit. So, timing, you think?
Wow.
So, like half my life has been spent in Texas.
Yeah.
So, what was the question again?
So when did the DUI? So you hit rock
that's right.
bottom when you crashed your car and you got DUI. How did you? I mean,
Ooh. I was like, the world's moving. Nope, you're just your stools. Moving forward. I know I was out with a bunch of friends at an Irish pub in Austin. That honestly, we had the best times there. We really, truly did. This is also, I was, going through school as well. And so.
What school?
Like hair school,
Mm-hmm.
cosmetology school.
Yeah.
And so, very seldom, how do I want to say that? The first DWI, it was Long Island's iced teas all night. And just having a good time with a bunch of buddies and friends. And then I thought I was okay to drive. And I was like, all right, I'll see you guys later, blah, blah, blah. And then get in my car. I'm like, do. And I remember everything as if it happened yesterday. Like, it's not a blank page in my head.
So there wasn't like
when
you're
it came
driving,
around.
you get sleepy.
No.
It was like, bam, crash pull. How did I get here? I mean, it was like, how did that?
I heard a pop.
Huh.
And then my car started spinning out of control. And I hit the wall so many times.
You must have hit something you didn't even.
Well, that's why I was like, there's no way. I was like, I was totally fine. There's no, like, I don't understand this. Like, what's going on? And so that's why I said, I'm like, I was totally fine. But then I heard a pop. I thought, okay, either it blew my tire out, or I hit a rock. I don't know what happened.
Something.
I just know I heard a pop.
Right.
And then the car went crazy.
Yeah.
And then I was able to get out of my car. I was like, I just remember going, just seeing spinning, and I just went, I let go of the wheel. I was like, nope, Jesus, take the wheel. That's literally all I thought was, Lord, take the wheel. Save me from this. I just, like, specifically prayer. Save me from this. Just take the wheel. And I just remember spinning, and I just closed my eyes. And I just waited for it to be done. Like you're on a roller coaster. You have no control over it.
Wow. Okay, so you're in a crash car. The police show up, breathalyzer or something, and then they take you to jail.
So I get out of the car. I look at my car, going, no.
Yeah.
I grab my cell phone that's on the floor.
Right.
Grab it. I'm calling everyone that I was in the bar with, everyone possible. No one sends their phone. They're all at home. They're crashed out, man.
Right.
I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I'm trying to get a hold of someone so they can come get me before the cops get here. I just had a feeling that, because there's nobody involved, there was nobody around me. It was a complete open highway. And it was all the cars going in the opposite direction that saw the accident that called.
Yeah.
Because how else is going to get called? It wasn't me calling them.
Right.
And so, and then boom, and then the police get there, and I'm just like, seriously, nobody? And then I realized, okay, well, here we go. And they saw it, and they just assumed I was drunk. I can't remember to that point, though. They said, hey, asked a couple questions, and I was like, well, I just heard a pop, and this happened, that happened, and oh, my car, like, oh, your car will be taken care of later. And they put me in the police car, and they took me in, and the rest is...
They booked you the whole thing?
Yeah.
So they didn't do any like field sobriety tests or anything
See,
like
that part I don't remember. That's the one part I don't remember, which is really weird. I don't remember them... Actually, did they do field sobriety tests? I can't remember if I blew and sobriety test or one or the other, but I know one of those two happened.
Do you remember having like a light shined in your eyes, walking in a straight line, anything like that?
On the second one, I remember that. The first one, I don't.
Okay. So, all right.
To
So
be
you got
honest.
So then, how do you have another DUI?
I was in Austin, and I went down for a friend's birthday. I had literally maybe 2 or 3 drinks. So I knew that it was. I was like, no. I was actually living. I was roommating with my girlfriend at the time, and she was out of town, and I was dog watching. I was dog sitting. And I was walking to the car. I got in the car, and I think I did not see the stop sign. And the guy pulled me over, and I was like, he goes, did you see the stop? I'm like, I totally did not see the stop. There's a stop sign back there? He goes, you know how fast you're going? I said, I believe it's this fast. He's like, no, it's this fast. I'm like, are you sure? 'Cause I swear I saw a sign back there. And then he goes, have you been drinking? I'm like, I had like 2, like 3 hours ago. He goes, step out of the car, please, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, are you kidding me with this right now? And then, boom, they threw me in. I was like, are you joking me? There's no way. There's no way. I was completely fine. And I was like, no, I can't go in. The dog. I was more about the dog than I was myself. And I was like, how am I supposed to get this to happen? And then, I was like, well, can I at least get my purse? He goes, nope. He refused to let me get any of my personal belongings from the car. I was like, isn't that kind of illegal? Isn't that my right to get my stuff? So I was already mad and in the right mindset to know what's not okay and what is okay, and how I was like, how I'm being treated is so against my rights. I was so beyond mad. I was like, really? So the process of being in there for so long and trying to get out and getting a hold of somebody to get into the house, to take care of the dog, to get my stuff out of the car, to blah, 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 blah. So I finally had someone to get me out. And when he put me in jail, and I had, I got someone to pick me up, the whole process of making the phone calls and getting my stuff out of the car was beyond ridiculous. And then trying to make a report against the guy, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so, when it comes to DWIs, unfortunately, I don't want to be an expert in this. But going through it twice, you start remembering everything you have to go through with, can you afford a court-appointed or somebody else? And because I had to get the one guy that he shouldn't have been practicing anymore. So
Practicing law, the lawyer.
He was a dirty dude when it came to getting favors by this and that and what have you. Like, oh, you get this for free if you do this favor for me. And not exactly in the most...
Are we talking about like sexual favors here, or are we talking...
And drugs and alcohol favors, yeah. All the above. And I didn't realize that until after. I was like, why did you guys hook me up with this dude if this is how he practices law? Like, this is crap. Like, I was mind blown. I was like, are you joking me with this right now? This is how you... Like, no.
This is the court-appointed person?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he's alive anymore. But, yeah, apparently all the people that know that they can get away scot-free for X, Y, and Z favors, they know to go to that dude.
Wow.
And I learned that after I got out. I was like, great.
All right, so you get the DUI. Are you able to drive? Or how long is your license suspended?
A couple of years.
And then, oh man, it's brutal.
It was with a a blow in your car,
Yeah.
machine in your car. And so it was a long time went by, but because this is when I actually went away, because he failed to tell me the next court date, and then I get a phone call saying you missed your court date, and now there's a thing out for your arrest. I was like, I was never told about my court date, or else I would have been there. So he failed on his job, which means I get punished for him being negligent.
So you went to jail.
Yeah,
How long?
a week.
Where at?
Longest week of my life.
Where-
Williamson County.
Okay.
No, Travis County, because it's in
Downtown.
Austin. Oh yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
So
That was
so you go downtown. You're in this jail. What was that experience like?
Lindsay Lohan all over again. Because they literally called me Lindsay Lohan when I was in there.
Of course they would.
Of course they did. I mean, hello.
Yeah.
So it was a nightmare. I was like 24 hours is doable, but a whole week, like you have to have a job while you're in there. You have to do it was just. Don't drink and drive, you guys. It was oh my gosh. I don't recommend
Yeah, I think
it, but
the
it
moral
was
of the story
awful.
of that: don't drink and drive.
Yes, it was. I ended up seeing someone I knew who happened to work in there. I was like, don't look at me. But yeah, it was bad. And I ended up, befriending, or not really befriending, but getting on good terms with I guess my bunk mate, if you
Sure.
will. And she told me what she was going through, and we exchanged, addresses for letters and stuff. But I that's when I started picking up my purpose-driven life.
Okay, so you started reading Purpose Driven Life.
And it reconnected me with God.
Wow.
And it just numerous nights falling asleep and crying while reading that book.
Why? Why did it have such an impact?
It delivered so much truth that I never heard before, or an extension of what I did hear before that I
Right.
forgot about.
Right.
And it literally saved me while I was behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get did someone give it to you, or how'd you get it?
It was literally part of the book collection to pick from at jail.
Huh.
And I was like, dude, if y'all had this in schools, you wouldn't need
Yeah.
That's a whole other part of conversation for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just, that's what literally that's what saved me. I got out and I was like, I'm never doing this ever again. And from there on, I didn't. From counseling to AA classes to you name it, you go down the hall, you go down the hall
Right.
of all of it. And yeah, it's wild because, you look back from how the reminder of oh my God, he literally saved me from the reminder of, strip joints, working in them, as well as, being a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And then going to parties at the drag shows, and you become buddy with them. And I personally, I will never have anything bad to say about that world.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because when I needed to be seen and heard, they grabbed me in and they held me. Like a physical hold, not a spiritual hold, obviously. And I can understand why a lot of people go that route when they're feeling lost.
Sure.
And they're feeling unwanted and unseen and unheard, because if they're not getting you for anybody else, why not this person who's not judgmental, all loving, great, blah, 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 according to what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm like,
It's a counterfeit for sure, but it sure feels real.
yes.
And it you feel loved and supported and all the things, and they're not, the thing that we're so afraid of, I don't think so anymore, but the Gen X and maybe millennial, so afraid of being judged, and maybe that's coming from boomer world where it was just pure judgment all the time, because I think that used to be one of the things. I don't think that's really true anymore. 20 years ago, being judged at church, being judged by Christians was a thing, and it was really hard. And now I think everyone is sort of pushed back against that so hard that there's no judgment anywhere.
Right.
And so we've lost moral bearings a little bit. But yeah, that's a powerful statement of like I mean, I don't even know if it was called the LGBTQIA community back then.
This was
It was
like,
just,
yeah, no, this was way before there were even parades.
right.
You know, there was no pride of anything. It was just, hey, you want to go drag show? Sure, that sounds like a great time, because it was.
Right.
But in a different light.
Right.
Or dimmed light.
Dim
if you will.
light.
If you will.
Yeah, non-light. Yeah, but I get
you
what
get what
you're
I'm saying. It's like, so I mean,
but then the purpose-driven life comes into your world.
Yeah.
Jesus re-enters into your world.
and
how did
my just everything just lifted.
Yeah.
I just felt so heavy and so lost and so dark and so scared.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
like the shell
So
broke.
Jesus has the ability to impact your life, come find you at the darkest of your spots. And what I love about you is that, like, going back to the 11-year-old you with the dude with the friend in the van, like I see like that could scar a kid for life, and there's no redemption and there's no hope. And yet for you, you've been able to sort of lean into God, wrestle with Him, and move forward, trusting in His grace. With, you know, obviously, I think the hard part, what I'm hearing from your story, is you start moving with Jesus and you forget, and then bam, crazy thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
You get Jesus, hey, Jesus, we're back. You start moving with Jesus, and then the tendency is to forget. And I think that's the hard part, is to kind of keep Jesus at the forefront. What would you say?
Consistency.
Consistency.
And that's always been my struggle with
Yeah.
everything in my life. Consistency. And it's funny because
it seems like that was the thing you were afraid of when you were in your 20s, right? Like, I don't want another boring life. And now it's the very thing, I guess, that you would desire.
I guess I was looking for excitement
Yeah.
and fun and keeping my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And the party life did just that.
Yeah.
And today, that's not the kind I'm looking for. And it's more or less, I don't yearn to go out to the dance halls anymore. I don't yearn or want all the past life that I thought I would always have or want anymore.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, it's actually kind of funny because the people that you meet in those areas are the people who had literally become my family, who they've always been the Christians, but are deeper in their faith, in their walk today, that have actually they've helped me stay on the straight and narrow. Because I could have easily gone back that way after the breakup.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a different kind of fun. It's not a dark fun, it's a light fun. It's a different kind of fulfillment. To where just the transformation that it's actually kind of funny because when I told my parents the kind of transformation I was going through when I was with Trevor, they go, "Well, Laurie," my dad told me this, "Laurie Ann, we have been praying for this for you for so long because we've been so worried and scared for your future." Because they have no idea all the things I've been through and done.
Mm.
They just have an idea, maybe.
You send them this podcast.
My sister may. I don't know.
Why share this now?
Because the Spirit put it on my heart.
Mm.
Like, literally the same month he told me it's time, find a church closer to home, he put it on my heart to share my life story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've been, like, so emotional with all these different emotions going on. A roller coaster of what am I feeling and trying to dissect and depict everything and what everything meant.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, okay, stage 1, this, stage 2, this, and now go, and now go, and now go. And so, which is even more funny because like just all the things that I have experienced in my life can tend to bring some of those experiences back and the physical feel goods.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to go, okay, so can you still enjoy this and separate that and not enjoy this part of it? And that's where I'm at. Like hypothetically, like some of those Irish fairs,
Right.
or like Celtic festivals. You know, love going to those, but a lot of it is very
drinking.
sexual.
And, okay, really?
It can be.
Huh.
They're a lot of fun, but they also
What's
be very.
sexual about a Celtic festival?
The more drunk you get, the more sexual they get with, you know, the corsets and the women being all,
got it.
you know, there, you know, all that jazz,
Yeah.
you know, ooh, flip up, oh, the men and all that, you know, like back in, you know, that's, although that era was nothing but drinking and sex.
Yeah.
That's all it was. But there is a part where you can just have fun in the, I guess, innocent mind of it all. So that's why I'm like, I wonder if I can still enjoy the fun, childlike essence of it without going into the dark part of it.
Mm-hmm. So one
much
of
control
the
do I
things
really
that
have?
happens for people is when they have severe trauma, like as an 11-year-old, you get stuck emotionally in some parts of you as an 11-year-old.
Yep.
And like, so the things like developing consistency can be stuck in the 11-year-old little girl who is looking for pew, 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 pew.
Yeah.
And because you weren't able to mature through that, because you're like all of your development, unless there's like, and I'm sure you've been through some counseling and stuff.
I did, yeah,
And so
100%.
So you probably had, that probably happened for you later, the healing aspect of all of that. Would you say that that's what happened, like to
Yeah.
working through all this? Because I'm sure you told your counselor about.
Well, my mom made sure all of us went to counseling.
Oh, good.
She's like, okay, we're not. She wanted to make sure and do her best to heal any scars going
Nice.
forward, and well, she put everybody through counseling to
Yeah.
make sure, because this is a whole family affair,
Yeah.
and this is also, I think. I kind of wish that we went to a church counselor as opposed to a regular counselor, because
to, like, a
that's where
therapist.
medications get prescribed and blah, 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 blah. That's why a lot of people have such a hard time wrapping their head around, I want to go to a counselor, because they have PTSD from past counselors because they prescribed a bunch of stuff that wasn't the word.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, that's the wrong drug, dude.
Yeah.
That's not who you want to go to.
That's good.
So I kind of wish it was that instead.
Yeah.
Plus, watching the guy be put away was
Yeah.
also a huge relief.
Yeah.
But of course, like I said, when he got out, it was a whole nother situation. But I heard a couple years back that he ended up passing away anyways. I was like, well, good luck to you, kid. So, hope you were saved before that. Like,
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, my parents did everything they possibly could to make sure that we all got what we needed, while going through everything I went through to find all of the things I felt I was lacking in all the wrong ways.
Jesus fills the hole of the soul. I mean, it's a platitude, but it's true. What do you think there, Jordan?
About that platitude?
No, about just, well, you could talk about the
Well,
platitude.
I do have two questions for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll preface this one kind of like some of the worst experiences I've had in my life. In hindsight, I feel like have been God ordained to course correct me in a way. And I was curious if you've ever had that thought around that week in jail for you.
Course correct?
Course correct, like you're.
You said you found this book in jail and it completely changed your life. So like that week, do you ever see that as like God's area of course correcting you to get you off the path you were on?
100%.
Yeah.
Because honestly, through everything that I experienced, I can't say went through, but everything I experienced, because it was all mostly all willing. And just to be clear, it wasn't because like I wanted to experience it with girls. It was to make the men happy. It had nothing to do with me. It was to make them happy, not me happy. And that's why I started considering myself bisexual, because I was like, oh sure, girls, no problem. And then, but only if a guy. I always said it, but only if a guy's involved. I never wanted to do just, well, whatever. So But I think, and that's another divulge, which I haven't ever said out loud publicly ever. That's how STDs come about, and that's actually where I think where he's like, okay, this is it. You're done. Come back to me, kid. Come back to me. And if I need to find you on a bunk bed in a cell, then so dang it. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly where it came. And ever since then, I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, you really had a hard go from 11 years old to just a lot of bad decisions that brought you to a place of just darkness. And then that was like you almost found comforted in the darkness, which is sort of wild to think about, because there was probably a fear of church or people that they would judge you, and just what maybe your experiences from that.
Well, I think, honestly, when I didn't like is that whenever I asked questions at church about things that I didn't understand, it was always either never truly answered, or it was answered with another question. It was almost like a never directly like this, like, how dare you ask these questions about what you were trained or brought up to do, right? And so for me, like, I we went to beach retreats, we did women's retreats, we did teen retreats, we did Bible studies and lock-ins, and we did all kinds of stuff. I mean, I met a bunch of people that I absolutely loved dearly. Mm-hmm. It was just a lot of the questions that never got answered, that, completely honest, they all got answered here at Wells Branch. And to the point where all the holidays that we, have Easter and Christmas and everything else, I would call mom and dad and be like, I've been always asked this question and no one ever answered this to me, and guess what I just learned. And mom, in the background on the speakerphone, my dad goes, well, I've always known that. I'm like, no one's ever told me.
Why doesn't anyone let me know? Come on.
And then mom's over here like, because God forbid, you ask questions and, contradict everything you ever taught me. Like,
hard.
So
that's hard.
It's one of those things. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I had a bad experience in church, but at the same time, everything I felt like I was taught in the church outside of my faith was incorrect.
Right.
And that's where I think a lot of the trust may come from, and I just realized that just now. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Because, it's how dare you transfer from Catholic to non-denominational Christian without speaking with me first. My mom and I didn't talk for 6 months because she wouldn't talk to me for making the decision without her knowledge and without her approval. And then all of a sudden, one of her best friends at work, because, she vents to her best friends, what's going on in the family, and her friend goes, well, I go to that church. And all of a sudden, mom's like, oh, really? And so now she wants to investigate it. In other words, you wanted to raise an independent woman, which she did. Yeah. Once I forced myself out on my own, not okay, now I'm going to cut you loose. No, it was, I'm going to, get off kind of thing. So it wasn't okay, I raised you enough to think for yourself. I'm going to trust you to make this big decision on your own. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that at all. It was, how dare you make this decision without my knowledge and my approval, but now I'm going to trust that somebody else that I know and trust to let me know that it's okay that you went that direction. Yeah. And I'm over here going, really?
I mean, nobody signed up for parenting class.
No, that's what I said.
I think it's so hard.
And after 6 months of not talking, she finally started realizing where I was going and everything else. And I wanted to show her the difference between what I was raised with and who I'm becoming. Right. And like I said, I don't blame anybody in my childhood for where I'm at, because I am stronger because of them. So
tell me about, would you say you have joy now?
Oh my gosh.
Because someone would say, listen, STD, rape, just
all these different titles,
DUIs, jail, you're still wanting to get married, I
we haven't arrived. There is no bow. Ending.
Show me the bow. Where's the bow? I need to put a bow on. But you still have joy in no matter what the circumstances. Tell me about that just briefly.
It's a choice. You can either choose to let the outside world affect you to where you're constantly angry and constantly resentful and bitter, or you can just wake up and go, okay, and just keep going. Yeah. Laugh it off, just say okay, and just keep going and choose to let it bounce off of you instead of letting it affect you. I have a picture in my bedroom that's next to my bed, and every morning I wake up and it just says choose joy.
Nice.
So I wake up every day and see that.
Yeah.
I see cowboy up, cowgirl up, aka get that get the grit going while choosing joy at the same time.
It's good.
Like, get your armor and let's get out of bed and tell the devil what's up.
Well, I love that because all things work together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And I think sometimes we forget that all things are working for good, even the dark things. And although I would say God would want us to choose right, even in our sinfulness and even in our darkness, he is ultimately for those whom he has chosen, for those whom he loves, he has a great plan, and it's going to work for good. And if it's not good, it's not over, because when it's over, it's all good.
I actually saw that at a license plate one random time.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. We got to wrap this up. We love talk faith, culture, everything in between. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome week of worship.